Hey everyone, I want to introduce you today to Laura Brailsford. She is going to talk to us a little bit today about meditation, movement, yoga, which is of course what we've been focusing on. So welcome. And Laura, and I'm sorry I said Brailsford and not Brailsford. Introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself.
Absolutely. So I could really go on to a tangent. I've lived quite a life. I've lived quite a life. I've lived many lives in one life. But from the yoga perspective, I was just mentioning to Lynn actually that I was a dance major in university, and I spent a great many years dancing and performing. And in university, I actually had a bit of a breakdown. So this is Lynn doesn't know this about me, but I developed an eating disorder, and I was not taking care of my body. I was not eating properly. I was popping pills, and they were diet pills. Um, when you could still buy them over the counter, as they were back in the, in the late 90s. And I was really harming my body. I wasn't sleeping. And I ended up dropping out of university second year in, because the pressure was just too strong. And I had a breakdown. And I went on years and years and years, still loving dance, still loving movement, but really not finding my groove. I taught for a while at a ballet studio, and I ended up injuring myself. And so I kind of got stuck in the hole of hospitality. And it's a great industry, but it can become quite toxic, and it can really take a lot out of you. And as the years progressed, I really liked the money that I was making. So I went from serving to bartending to restaurant manager. And then I ended up buying into a restaurant with an ex-boyfriend, fiance. And that was when I had my second breakdown. So my second breakdown was I ended up falling ill with an undiagnosed, but I would say an autoimmune disorder. And I ended up with full body eczema, head to toe. I was reacting to everything I ate. I was stressed beyond belief, and I was not able to function. And when he finally fired me and broke up with me for the sixth or seventh time and told me that I could no longer come to the restaurant because the relationship just was not working, not always the easiest to work with a partner, I then found yoga. And I had always thought that it was something that I wanted to do. But I hadn't been active up until then, and I hadn't been dancing, and I hadn't really been doing any sort of movement. But I found yoga less for the physical activity and more for the coming back to self. And it was the combination of yoga and meditation that really, I would say, helped turn my life around. And it brought me to a much more peaceful place. If anybody knew me before, in my previous life, and one of my previous lives, they would know that I was always quite frantic. I was always doing a million things, rushing from here to there, trying to take so much on my plate. You can even see that I speak really quickly because I'm always on the go. But the difference between then and now is I now am able to find peace and comfort, and I'm able to find stillness. But I also have a new appreciation for that stillness. And the truth is, most people go into meditation, they go into yoga with the idea that you have to become still. And I debunk that just a little bit, because while you're still, your blood still flows, you are still breathing, your heart still beats. So there really is still some movement going on in your body. And when I teach yoga, I capitalize on that movement. I incorporate that movement. To me, yoga is very little to do with the stretch and the, let's twist our leg around here. It has less to do with that. It's about finding the moving meditation. It's about finding that mindset where you can be completely present at this very moment in time, and then finding that flow in the body and allowing it to expand. So when I practice yoga, it's not these let's hold warrior two for 5,000 years. It's like, where's the movement in warrior two? And then how can we move it into a different movement? And how can we incorporate that and go with the breath and go with the flow of the body? So I think I found a new type of yoga, I'd say, because it's for everyone. It's organic. It's moving with the body and creating that motion in stillness that's so important to be really human. That was the long and the short of it.
So tell us, when we think about yoga, because yes, we do think about the yoga poses, and you think about, oh my gosh, I could never stretch and do some of those things. So I know that you and I had talked before about the whole perception of yoga, and I know your perception is quite different to a lot of people.
Yes, it is. And my perception of yoga is one thing, and the other truth is that most people's perception of yoga is actually inaccurate. So the perception of yoga in the modern day culture is that it is about going to a class and working out. And yes, there's that mindset piece behind it, but the reality is the yoga postures, the asanas as they're called, are only one portion, one limb of yoga. So there are 8 limbs of yoga. And the majority of it, so the other 7 limbs, have nothing to do with postures. They have everything to do with breath work and meditation, or ways of life. So the yamas and niyamas, as they are called, are ways of life, of practices of life. It's what kind of person do you want to be to live the yogic lifestyle. So when people come to me and say, I can't do yoga, I say to them, what is it that you think you can't do? What is it that you think you can't do? And a lot of them say, my body doesn't work that way anymore, or I've lost my flexibility, or I've done this, or I've done that. And then I say, well, what is it that you need to accomplish? Or what is it that you want to accomplish? And if it's more about finding that stillness, or more about, taking the stress off and relieving anxiety and not removing depression, let's say helping with depression. I'm not a mental health coach, full disclosure, but I can definitely speak to it. If their background is to help with ailments of the body, then there's a variety of different yoga practices that would fit that need. And I think it's the misconception that is what it is, and I'm not there. I'm 40, almost 42. I danced all my life, and I'm worse off for it because I have so many injuries from dancing. I quit dancing for the better half of my life because I'd injured myself so badly and couldn't go back to it. So I understand when your body doesn't move the way you want it to, where you can see people, doing handstands and stretching out and doing the splits, and you're like, that's not for me. So it's approaching it from a place of, what do I need? Do I need to relieve some anxiety? Well, that's breath work. That's meditation. That's that limb of yoga. Do I need to speak kinder to myself? Well, that's the yamas and niyamas. That's that limb of yoga. So it really is approaching it from the point of, what do I need? How do I want to change my life? How do I want to move forward? And how do I want to, really take that turn so that I can change my life to something that's more suitable for me, that better serves me, that makes me happier, that brings me joy.
So even when we think about the meditation part of it, because that's so important, we often think as well the same thing. Oh, I don't have 2 hours to sit and do this woo-woo stuff. So tell us how simply the meditation portion can be.
Let me do a simple meditation portion. It'll take 2 minutes and you'll see.
Okay.
So we're going to close our eyes and plant our feet down into the ground. If you're lying down or sitting a different way, then find just a comfortable place where you can feel connected. And typically I like saying plant your feet down into the ground because there's something about grounding down. It calms the body, it calms the nerves, and it allows you to feel connected to the earth. You can feel the vibration. Meanwhile, imagine your spine long and elongated and reaching up, and so that you're reaching up through the crown of your head. And you can even imagine a pillar of light that elongates you, connects you from above to below. Now, whether you believe in God, the universe, creator, the divine, whomever that is, imagine yourself connecting to that omnipotent. And now I want you to draw your attention right down into your heart. Focus on the heart. And allow your heart to feel every single breath that you take. You don't need to change the breath. Just allow your heart to feel the breath. We're going to take a moment, and I want you just to center in and pay attention to what you hear going on in the room. You can maybe hear my voice. Maybe you hear some talking in the background or some traffic going by. But focus into that hearing without really trying to change anything. Just notice. Be the observer. Now I'm going to ask you to draw into your sense of smell. What can you smell going on in the room? What do you notice? Maybe you notice some food cooking. Maybe you notice that you smell some rain outside. Maybe you notice the breath as it moves in and out of your nose. It could be cold or dry. And now we're going to draw in to our sense of taste. Notice what your mouth feels like. Is it dry? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Just really feel what's happening with your mouth. And now we're going to draw into our sense of sight. What do you see when your eyes are closed? Some people see color. Some people see darkness. Some people see imagery. Know that it's all correct. It is all perfect. Everything that you're experiencing right now is complete perfection. And lastly, we're going to draw into a sense of touch. We're going to take it a little bit deeper. So how do you notice your skin feels right now? Do you notice your clothing? Does it feel soft or scratchy? Is it uncomfortable and digging in somewhere? And then I'm going to ask you to go even deeper. What do you feel in your body? Does it feel like you're moving in flow? Do you feel your heart beating? Are you noticing any hunger pains? Or maybe you're holding tension somewhere and you're noticing that. And lastly, I want you to go even deeper. Where are your emotions? Do you feel them in your body? Do they center into a particular place? Your heart, your solar plexus, your throat? What do you notice? And what we've done right here today, right now, is we've become ultra present in where we are, in our surroundings. Whenever your mind starts to spiral forward or spiral backwards, this is the perfect exercise to bring you right back to center, right back to present, right back to this very moment of this very time. In your own time, in your own pace. I'm going to invite you to take 5 more breaths and then open your eyes. As you're coming back, I want you to notice any shifts in your body. How do you feel? Do you feel calmer? Do you feel more present? Do you feel more relaxed, more centered? Do you feel more grounded? I do. And that was like 3 minutes. Quite often people think that meditation is woo-woo. And to be quite honest, as much as into the woo-woos I am, it wasn't approachable for me. I had a really hard time turning off my monkey mind. I would go into my yoga class and I would think about what was happening next. Mm-hmm. And it would always be, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And then I had to start to realize that I wasn't enjoying anything in my life. I wasn't showing any appreciation. I wasn't showing any attention to anything that I was going through. And I did it as a coping mechanism. A lot of it, I tried to breeze through things that were going on in my life because I was trying to cope with what I was dealing with. But with meditation, it came to me, I actually started with mantra meditation. So I started with japa meditation with beads. And that was the most useful thing for me because it meant, I usually have a mala hanging here. It meant that I was focused on words. And to me, I could do that. I could silently say a prayer or an affirmation. And at the time, I was focusing on, I had done a mala making course, so I was focusing on different Hindu chants. And I had one that I really liked. I had memorized it, and I would just, you know, say my prayers, and I would do that before the yoga class. And what I found was I started to really recreate my life. I recreated the flow of my life. I recreated the speed of my life. I found that time became more expansive because I became more present. I found that I wasn't rushing from one place to the next. And even though I had the same to-do list, it seemed that I had more time to do it because I wasn't skipping things or missing things because I was trying to rush forward. Meditation is yoga. Yoga is meditation. The idea that yoga is not approachable for every single person. I mean, I do it with my 8-year-olds. I do it with my husband, and he's not super flexible. You know, I've taught it to 2-year-olds. I've taught it to I had a 70-year-old woman doing a headstand, right?
Wow.
It is approachable for everybody. It's just knowing your body and knowing your needs and knowing what you'd like to accomplish out of it. What are your goals, right? It becomes back to a little bit of a pragmatic place where we look at it as like, how can I better my life? For me, bettering my life was going to be slowing down and coming back to center. So that's what worked for me. If bettering your life is recreating a habit, or if bettering your life is breathing more, or if bettering your life is taking time for yourself, then this covers all of those things in different ways.
And it covers mindset as well, right? And how does meditation and yoga and movement help to change your mindset?
Absolutely. How does it? It does in so many different ways. In my yoga classes, I mean, every yoga class, we end in Shavasana, which is pretty classic, right? You're lying on your back and you're breathing. And quite often I will go into that place of Shavasana and I'll say, let's become present first. So let's first be here, be now. And then I start to talk about, because your mind will go, it will go. And sometimes we just need to allow it to go. So I start to say, you know, I'm thinking to myself, if your mind's going to go, let's give it a place to go to. And the place that I go to is the co-creation of existence. So how can you be involved in what's to happen next? You can go off into your day or your week or your month and be, you know, go with the flow or try and force things, or, you know, be angry about certain outcomes, especially in the world that we're living in right now. So what I go through is I ask my students to picture a situation that they're about to encounter. What's causing them, you know, the anxiety behind something? And I air quote it because I'm not labeling it as anxiety. It's just the best way to describe it right now. But what's causing you that tension, that stress, and I ask them to go to that situation. And I ask them to go to that situation and then imagine the outcome. Imagine if the outcome were to be exactly in their dreams, to their greatest pure potentiality. If you look at pure potentiality, if you take it to that point, then often you can help to relieve the anxiety associated with it or the stress associated with it. And what ends up happening is the situation often will turn to your benefit, right? You can also look at it from a mindfulness place, but look at it from mindfulness is basically being present, right? It's being present with your breath. It's noticing your breath. So as I'm teaching the yoga, no matter if it's a complex yoga class and we're doing all kinds of rappy type activities, there's a few, or if it's my simplest, my breath work class, it's still the conversation of check in with your breath, check in with your knees, check in with your body. What are you feeling? Where do you feel pain? Do you feel, do you feel tension anywhere? That's bringing you back to center, right? And the mindfulness piece is about being able to be completely dedicated to what you're doing at that moment in time, whether it be breathing, whether it be eating, whether it be walking, whether it be moving. Yeah.
Awesome. So I appreciate all of your wisdom. yoga's always been something to me that was a little out of my reach because, as you say, I felt like my body wasn't able to do it. So that's very exciting to me, to think that you don't have to rely on what you feel that you can do.
True. It's so true. And I sometimes say to my students, even if you're not feeling up to it, even if you have an injury, or maybe you pulled your back on the weekend, come to class, be on your mat, and just breathe. Just breathe. Because it'll shift your focus, it'll shift the mindset, it'll shift the energy behind where you're at. Often we end up in the place of self-pity, as we act the victim of our circumstance. And it's not for me to say, pull yourself together. But at the same time, I'm not affected by your well-being. Only you are. So it's about taking control of how you feel and deciding to choose differently. Right? If you're feeling icky and sticky and stuck and frustrated and anxious or depressed, and not every day is perfect. I have my days too. We're all human. We are meant to have those feelings. Those feelings help us to appreciate the better days. But it is up to us to turn it around as best as possible. And some days are harder than others. But I can tell you, I got up at 6 o'clock this morning. I'm a bit of an early bird. Got up at 6 o'clock this morning. I did a ballet class. And some people would say, you're a little bit old. You're doing a ballet class at 41 years old. And I thought, I'm going to do a ballet class because I love ballet. And why not? So changing your mind about who you are and what you can do and what's possible. You can do anything you want to do, regardless of what's happening. Regardless. The opportunities are there for everyone to take on and fully experience life, no matter if it's behind a screen. My ballet class was from behind a screen, right? It's up to us to decide differently and to change the script and say different things to ourselves, because this is what creates this.
Right. Right. So thank you. I really appreciate you joining us today and imparting your wisdom, because this kind of unlocks some keys for me and helps me to understand a little better, and actually helps me to feel more motivated to get into yoga.
There's something for everyone, no matter where you are in life, the age, the ability, it doesn't matter. It's less about the ability. It's more about the mindset.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I love the opportunity. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful.